faith, family, freedom, hope, and opportunity. You're listening to Freedom Rings. I'm your host, Senator Marsha Blackburn. Welcome to Freedom Rings. So pleased that you're joining us today. And if North Carolina is a state at the top of your list, you're going to want to listen in. Our guest today is Ted Budd, and he is a North Carolinian through and through. He's also a proven freedom fighter, and he is an unapologetic conservative, been a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He was elected there in 2016, and now he is running for the U.S. Senate. And I was so pleased to come in alongside him early on in that race, and we're going to push this all the way through to November. So, Ted Budd, welcome to Freedom Rings.
Thank you, Senator. It's great to be here, and thanks for the support along the way.
Absolutely. I want you to start out and talk a little about your family's farm. You were on a cattle and a chicken farm in rural Davie County, North Carolina, so you know what it is to work hard, to be resilient, to push through every single day, making certain that you're doing what you have to do to make that living. So talk about your upbringing.
Well, I did grow up in rural Davie County, right outside of Winston-Salem. So we essentially had two businesses. One was a growing farm. It was a cattle and chicken farm, still is a working cattle farm today. And look, my neighbors might be listening in, Senator, so I don't like to call myself a farmer because they work way too hard for that title. But I have farmed at points in my life. And I also like to say that the other side of the business was closer to Winston-Salem, and that was a janitorial business that my father started in the 1960s, and then he added landscaping to that. So if I wasn't working on the farm with the chickens or with the cows, then we were scrubbing toilets or putting out pine straw or mowing grass.
Well, and those are all good, solid endeavors. And I think that by doing that manual labor, you learn a lot about hard work. So how did this change your work ethic, and what are the lessons you carry into today?
Well, I think having a great family also adds to the work ethic. There's a lot of folks that didn't grow up on a farm that have a great work ethic because they had great mentors and great family. And I certainly have a great mom and dad that I just want to thank as well for teaching me to work hard, whether it was on the farm or in that janitorial business, and not giving you an option. You don't have the option of quitting. And I remember a farmer told me a couple of weeks ago about a politician who had gone out to their dairy farm to visit, and I asked him about his day, and he said, well, I get up at 4:30 and I do my first milking, and then I go have a little breakfast, and then I start the day's work at 7. And the politician looked at him and said, well, I bet you can't wait for the weekends. And for those who don't get the joke, there are no weekends in farming.
Well, you're right about that. And I think with the little bit of work I do, growing some tomatoes and cabbage and my herb garden and things like that, every weekend I'm out there working on that, or my flowers, or pulling weeds, or
it's
getting
nonstop.
Down pine straw or mulch or something. You're right. It is, but I love every bit of that. And you talked about strong families, and when you have a family business, if family is not working, then there is no income, right?
That's right.
And so it does require everyone in the family to be a part of it. Talk a little bit about you and Amy Kate and your kiddos, 3 kiddos.
So 31 years ago, I went on a mission. My faith has been very important to me. I've talked about that to some degree out on the trail. And 31 years ago, as a student at Appalachian State University, I went on a mission trip to the USSR. And 2 things happened the week that I was there. The first thing, it was a 12-day trip, so a little more than a week, actually in Moscow, Leningrad, which was changing to St. Petersburg at the time, and then Kiev was the third city. It was all part of the USSR, and it's a shame to see what Putin is doing there now. But the 2 things that happened, one is the Soviet Union collapsed that very week, And the other thing that happened is I met Amy Kate, my wife, and she is not from Russia. She is from West Virginia. She is a coal miner's daughter, a granddaughter. And, we got married after college. We both went to Dallas Theological Seminary, both graduated from there. She decided that she wanted to homeschool our 3 kids. They're now, we're almost at the empty nester stage. They're off in college and starting their careers. We live on that family farm, and she's just an amazing wife of 27 years, fully supportive in this race and right there beside me. The only thing when she's out there around North Carolina, I say, don't write her name in over top of me on the ballot, because they love Amy Kate when they get a chance to meet her.
That is wonderful. And you mentioned your faith, and I like to say there are 5 big things: faith, family, freedom, hope, and opportunity. And if we get those right, a lot of other problems are going to work their way out because our focus is right. And I know through the faith work that you've endeavored on, pro-life causes have been important to you. So let's touch on why you are so given to protecting life at all stages of life, whether it's the unborn or it is the elderly.
Look, I think this is often talked about, women's rights, which we're all supportive of, but we have to think about human rights here and life beginning at conception. And so I think we need to realize that all the way until the natural end of life. And I really think that we have to understand that God is creator, and we have to live out of that worldview, and that leads to the most human flourishing on the days that we have here. And I think that's what leads to most people prospering, and that's what the policies that I support.
That's great. And the issues that you're hearing a lot about from North Carolinians, what are they talking about right now as you're out and about every single day, talking to them where they live and work and play? What's at the top of the list?
Senator, we were the only campaign, not just in the primary, but among the Democrats as well, that have gone to all 100 counties, talking to law enforcement, talking to the forgotten men and women of the different corners of the state that they don't have the big media markets. And we really learned a lot. And one of the things I've noticed in my message that allowed us to win in the primary is that I don't have to change that for the general, because the issues that are concerning to Republicans are concerning to everyone right now. And the 3 main things that I hear are, one, it's inflation. It's the price of groceries. It's putting gas in the tank. It's, if they're in their pickup truck going to work, can they afford that $100? And what is that crowding out in their family's budget? The other issue is it's crime. They're worried about the fentanyl abuse, the leading cause of death between those 18 and 45 years old. Sheriffs in some of the 100 counties that I visited are saying every single county is now a border county because of Joe Biden's policy. So they're worried about what may start at the border, but it shows up in their local counties only 72 hours later. And then they're worried about America being weak on the international stage and how that affects not only the whole world, but us right here. And that happened when Joe Biden had the horrible withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And you have quite a military presence in North Carolina.
We do. We have at least 3 branches plus Coast Guard. We have Camp Lejeune down on the east. We have Fort Bragg, of course, and then we have an Air Force base there. But it's the second biggest industry. The biggest industry in North Carolina, $96 billion is agriculture. And you don't see that if in the beltways and in your cities, but it's the single biggest industry. The second is military to our state. And especially as you move towards the east, you see so many veterans. And it's just been one of the great privileges of the past few months is to meet with so many veterans. And
your National Guard in North Carolina
absolutely
is really effective.
Absolutely, especially because we have 14 congressional districts. I don't have those units where I've been, but now we have a tremendous amount outside of that now that I get to go across the state.
And we so appreciate the National Guard. They show up to help stateside, and then they go through deployments working with some of these good troops.
Yes, they do.
Places like Camp Lejeune or Fort Bragg.
And my brother had the privilege to be a helicopter pilot in the National Guard. And of course, we're a hurricane state. That's a tough time of the year after the end of summer. And so we appreciate all their work during these floods and and hurricanes.
Indeed, indeed we do. Ted, I can't let you go without asking you, what does freedom mean to you, and why is it worth the fight?
You know, I like the statement. It says, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And
That's a great country song. James Dean Hicks wrote that one.
That's right. I got to go back and see all those lyrics. But, I think we need regulatory relief that puts the power back in the hands of the people. What were the 9 scariest words that Ronald Reagan would talk about? I'm from
the federal government, and I am here to help you.
Those are the worst words, because that's what we're seeing on the left right now, is that they think that they are the solution. They believe that it's an elitist mentality that believes they are better than the rest of the country. And that's just not true. We are, even on the Senate side, representatives, and we need to represent the folks back home and give them their freedom, their God-given freedoms.
Well, that is so true, and I'm thrilled that you have joined us today for Freedom Rings, and that our audience gets to know a little bit more about you and a little bit more about your run for the U.S. Senate. And I know that the people of North Carolina are going to look forward to standing with you against this radical Democrat agenda and your opponent, because North Carolina, like Tennesseans, they are looking for freedom, free people, free markets, and they know that if you focus on that, you'll work a lot of the issues out. And that is something that is important. It's important to the first principles of our country. So I would urge all of my friends that are there in North Carolina, check him out, tedbudd.com. And make certain that you are checking out Ted's campaign. And you can follow him on Twitter at TedBuddNC. Facebook is Ted Budd. And we wish you well.
Thank you, Senator. It's been an honor to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Freedom Rings. You can follow me on Twitter at Vote Marsha, Facebook at Marsha Blackburn for Senate, and on Instagram at Team Marsha. And you can always find us online at marshablackburn.com. The Freedom Rings podcast is edited and produced by Jared Cummings. Executive producers are Conservative Partnership Center and Marsha Blackburn. Together, we make Freedom Ring.